Hey there, welcome to the Focus Podcast with Taralee. This is the place where we talk about real life, real relationships, and how to grow through it all. If you're looking for simple mindset shifts, better communication, and deeper connections, you're in the right spot. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Taralee, and today I am joined by someone with a really unique approach to love and relationships. My guest, Zoey Charif. I said that correctly, right? I was hoping I didn't mess it up. She is the author of Love Can In Fact Be Calculated, and I am excited to talk to her a little bit about that today. Zoey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. This is really exciting because your book is so interesting, and I want to have you tell us a little bit about it and what led you to write this book and your background, because your background is very fascinating. I love it.
Thank you. Well, those are all very long-winded answers. So let me start very briefly with my educational background. I studied criminology and I never actually did anything with it. And yeah, I got into business. And as I got into business, I jumped into my passion, which is actually love and relationships. So this theory came to me about 20 years ago, and I kind of kept it in my back pocket as I was journeying through relationships and watching my friends and family go through relationships. And every single time I was thinking this theory can actually explain what's happening there. So 6 years ago, that's when I decided to really dive deep into the book, write it, do the analytics behind it. So I also have a background in data analytics. And yeah, I confirmed that the theory is valid. So I'll explain to you very briefly what the theory is. Love can, in fact, be calculated. I can predict and measure whether two people will fall into toxic patterns, whether they'll be happy, whether they'll go the long haul, or whether they'll break up. I can actually quite with certainty predict a breakup with numbers. So that's the basis of the theory. And the theory spun in so many different ways. And even now that it's published, I am still learning more about how this theory is applicable and the variations of it and all of that. And yeah, it's just that's what it is. And as we go on with the conversation, of course, I'll go into the depth of it, but in a nutshell, that's what this is.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's interesting. If we can determine what causes it and what maybe we can prevent it too, right? That's what I'm hoping
Yeah.
that this can uh, help us. So tell us, dive into this. Tell us a little bit about this. Because if
Okay.
I'm someone hearing this for the first time, I'm like, wait, what? How? How do we do this? How can we tell
Okay.
this?
Sure. Okay, well, first let's look into the psychology of it. The human psychology is that your body and your mind will not want to connect with someone that in your mind you think is less than you. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, less than, more than, that completely depends on you. Everyone has their own unique definitions of what values are, what you consider someone to be valuable and respectable. Okay? Everyone has their own definition. Now, we are inherently turned off by people that we don't respect. We are inherently turned off by someone who's not a match and not an equal, because our primal instinct is to create a strong offspring. That's very primal. I'm not saying that we consciously do this, but this is why we have check boxes, right? It's because we want to know whether there'll be a good match to our lives. But again, that reptilian brain is actually saying, what if I was to mate with that person? And if the reptilian brain says, yeah, oh, they're a catch, then the hormones will activate. You're going to want that person. You're going to put in your effort, your best foot forward. And that's essentially the basis of a healthy relationship and a fulfilling relationship. It's putting in effort and wanting to keep that person happy and, compromise and wanting to compromise, right? So that's the psychology aspect of it. It's that our brains are inherently wired to seek a match, if not better. Okay. Now, the actual formula and the calculations. How do you even measure a match? Well, the way you do it is first by determining what your top five values are. Or you can extend it to top 10. I used to do top five, now I do top 10.
Mhm.
You determine what those are, and then you give yourself a grade. You rate yourself on each one. When you tally up that score, you're going to get a numerical assessment of your self-worth, of your self-love, of your self-esteem. Now, let's assume my self-score, so this is what I call the self-score in the framework. Let's assume my self-score is 80%. I will not fall in love with someone or be in a happy relationship and fulfilling relationship if I perceive my partner to be less than in 80%. The analytics are confirming this, by the way. So the relationships, the couples who are currently together, they rated their partner at 4% above them. What that means is that there was admiration in the relationships. That's what created a fulfilling, sustainable relationship, admiration. And the magic number seems to be 4%. Now imagine this, and this is what we found in the analytics. When the partner score was 5% below them, they were in an on and off relationship. So even 5%, which you would think is such a close match, it was
Mhm.
still not fulfilling enough. Do you know why? Probably because people did not feel lucky to be in that relationship. They didn't put their best foot forward. Therefore, the partner also will not put their best foot forward. And then you start to see a breakdown and hence the on and off. The group after that, when the
Interesting.
partner score was minus 10, it was a mutual breakup. Once again, confirming that both people probably were not putting their best foot forward. Hence, they're like, why am I in this? I'm miserable. Mutual breakup. So, all to say, the analytics based on this formula have shown that, I mean, there's so much to this, but the very simple interpretation is it's important to admire your partner. And it all comes down to the mind. It really does. You can not be so hard on your partner, or you can, in other words, you can change your perception about your partner. Maybe in the first 6 months, they were a plus five, and maybe after 2 years, they became a minus five. That happens quite quite a lot actually, hence why people get married and then divorced. The reason they get divorced is because now we're looking at totally misaligned values and the partner score is now lower. The partner is now no longer fulfilling and meeting the standards of the person doing the survey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah, so is that all led by our thoughts about this person, right? Is that what you're saying? Which
Yes,
is
everything
interesting.
comes down to how you view them.
Hmm.
And here's the beauty. Another thing that I recognized from this framework that I did not realize would be a thing. I'm just learning so much from this framework, even though I developed it. But here's what I learned from the analytics. The people who were currently together, they had a strong self-score. They had strong self-worth. The people who rated below average for self-worth, they were not able to sustain the relationship. They were either in an on and off mutual breakup or they were broken up with. What does that mean? That means that you literally have to start with the self score. If you want to be in a relationship and you want it to be healthy, and sustained and in a long-term relationship, it actually starts with you. This is no longer a cliche of you can't love someone else unless you love yourself. This is not a cliche. The analytics are literally confirming that if you are falling below average for a self score, you are not likely going to stay in that relationship. And it makes sense because then you fall into tendencies that are unhealed. And those could look like jealousy, like neediness, like anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style, and you're not going to be secure. So the key here is to identify what you respect most in people and in yourself and work on that. When you work on that, you will naturally be a magnet to someone who's lucky, who feels lucky to have you. Naturally.
I love that so much. That goes a lot along a lot with I have a focus framework that how there's, are the facts that lead our the facts are neutral, and then we have our
Uh-huh.
thoughts that
Uh-huh.
we or we have the control over our thoughts. that lead
Exactly.
to our emotions and our behaviors, that lead to our results, that, all of that. So my listeners
Exactly.
have heard a lot me to talk about all this stuff all the time. So they're probably sick of me talking about my focus framework,
No,
but we have that control. And so if we have that control, I think that's empowering that, it's not dependent on somebody else. It's not dependent on the other person. We have
exactly.
that control, and I love it.
Exactly. In fact, there's a story at the end of the book. It's an epilogue, actually, and it's my own journal entries on how I got over a breakup 5 or 6 years ago. And the journal entries showed first and because I was so heartbroken. I had rated this partner like 15% above me, very high. This is what in the framework is infatuation. Infatuation is very dangerous because you're going to have rose-colored glasses, you're going to overgive, overforgive, and you're not going to have a grounded assessment of how the dynamics really were. And beyond that, it's you will get taken advantage of if you fall into, a bad dynamic, clearly. So I did the framework and I'm like, okay, first red flag, why am I giving him such a high score first? Second red flag, why am I giving myself such a low score? It's not like I'm that bad. So I started putting pen to paper and I realized, Zoe, you're hard on yourself and you need to chill out. So I bumped my score. And as I bumped my score, a few things happened. A, I started to believe that to be true. I'm like, yeah, I deserve this high score. If one of my values is dependability and reliability, I was dependable and reliable. I was consistent. And that is one of my values. I'm going to give myself a high score. And also, considering the breakup, why am I considering him dependable and reliable? He's nowhere near the score that I've given him. Why did I do that? It's because I was living in a fantasy and I was living in, oh, he peppered in all this generosity, but peppering in does not mean that's their core character or their core value or how they meet my standard. So it's because, again, I was in infatuation mode. So I was not assessing it in grounded reality. So I actually reduced his score. And the
Mm,
more I did this assessment in writing, the more I started believing it myself. So first it was a conscious assessment. First it was logical assessment. So my emotions had not caught up just yet. But eventually they did. Eventually I realized within my heart that we need to rebalance the scores. Not only rebalance the scores, I'm actually better. And remember what I said earlier. You are inherently turned off by people that you think you are better. So, with this conscious assessment and conscious evaluation, my emotions eventually caught up. And as my emotions caught up, my mind and my hormones were like, no, this is actually not for me. In fact, I'm better than this. And guess what? This person, less and less was on my mind, and more I was able to detach from that situation and open my heart to other situations. And speaking of opening my heart, I then met my husband, my now husband. So we met at the dog park, and at the time, I'm like, well, does he really fit my trait preferences? Because the framework doesn't just evaluate values, it also evaluates trait preferences, i.e., attraction. So
mhm.
in my head, I'm like, well, I don't know if the attraction is 100% there. But I also told myself, Zoe, just wait, just wait. We've seen your patterns. They're not great, right? Just wait. The attraction might grow. And it did. It did. Over 2 months, we built chemistry. I was laughing with him. And yeah, and then we got engaged and we got married. So all to say, the framework is a really good way to evaluate your unhealed tendencies, get over a breakup, something that you're stuck on, and have some awareness on who you attract into your life. Because had I not have this framework, when I met Kevin, and immediately I would have said, nah, not a fit,
Interesting.
not a match. But because in the framework, I'm like, well, the values are there.
Mhm.
Traits are not totally there. I told myself, just wait, just wait. And what happened was, because when you first get to know each other, not like your core character and your core essence will not necessarily show itself, right? Especially with Kevin. Kevin was very reserved. It's not until later that I saw all these feels, getting pulled back, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of depth here and there's a lot of humor, and this is a match. So I started bumping up his score for my trait preferences because he was meeting my attraction standards or the
Yeah.
things that I'm inherently attracted to. And then yeah, it became a match. So that's how I got over my shit
Yeah.
and moved
And
on
then
to
on.
something healthier.
Okay, so what if somebody, I have somebody very close to me that's gone through a breakup this week.
Okay.
Where is there somewhere that she can go to find this framework? And that I know your book, but you're talking about your test, the test too. Is there somewhere like
Yeah.
on your website that has that
So
or?
thanks for asking. I'm actually going to launch a couple courses, mini courses that you can purchase on my website, but they're not there yet. Otherwise, I'm a coach. So as a coach, what I do is first I go over the self score because, like I said, it's not even worth it to get it's got nothing to do with the other person. Whether you're
Yeah.
looking for a relationship, whether you want to improve your relationship, whether you want to get over a breakup, it's literally in the first place got nothing to do with them. You have to work on your self score. If you have a low self score, you're not going to be healed. So the coaching focuses on that. And the
Hmm.
coaching focuses on, well, let's look at your values. Are they conducive to a healthy relationship? Are you putting dependability and reliability in it? What about purpose? Is that included? Because purpose is a natural medicine. When you engage in something that your soul just cries, wants, and yearns for. Another thing is if in your top five values, if you're inherently you're choosing things that are generally good, but I don't know if they're necessarily healthy. For example, career and finances. Yes, very important for survival, but how much weight are you putting on that? Is it a little too high, right? Or image consciousness. It's like, I get it. Everyone wants to feel good and look good, but how much weight are we putting on that? Is it really that necessary or conducive to a healthy relationship? Um, and then another thing that I recognize for myself is whereas my top five were kind of like generic things, once I expanded it to top 10, that's where my true individuality kind of came out because I recognize that I value peace of mind. I value freedom. I value the Midas touch. So like people who just have like this like natural magnetism where when you're around them, things are just lucky and things just kind of fall into place, right? It's a weird thing to say, but that actually became one of my values because I think some people have that naturally. So what I would do with your friend, or I would advise her to first work on that self score. If she's below 76%, she's below the average. If she's above 76%, she probably has a good self score. So that's good, very
Hmm.
healthy. But I would still ask her to just go over those top five values. Because keep in mind that if she's not putting in dependability and reliability as that, she's not going to attract a rock. If
Yeah.
she's not putting in purpose, she will not have a natural medicine, something that boosts her and boosts her soul, that will allow her to glow and radiate from within, right? Um, and then I would challenge her to go a little deeper and say, okay, now that we have your top five, which are kind of basic stuff, let's go a bit
Hmm.
deeper. What does your soul truly want? Do you want stability? Do you want freedom? Do you want consistency? Do you want like really what is your soul calling out for? And another thing is the framework, believe it or not, has a very strong spiritual component because the cosmos will respond to something that's specific. When you write it all out, and you say, here's what I am, here's where I want to be. So let's assume you're at a 75%, but you want to be at a 90, no worries. Just write it out. The cosmos will literally respond to that. First, your brain will respond to that and believe that you are actually a 90%. Next, the cosmos will give you gifts to validate that you are 90%. And the next step is if your friend is looking for a partner, she just has to say, I attract a partner that is a 94%, because admiration is what she wants. And also, he has to admire her. They may have overlapping values, but they might be very different too. Just because you have career and finances as your value doesn't mean the guy will, or the girl, the partner, right? So, all to say, it's possible for two people to feel lucky to have each other. It's very
Mhm.
possible, and that's actually very healthy. That means that you fight for it. That means that when you
Yeah.
fight, you put your best foot forward and you communicate and you don't yell at each other because you inherently respect the other person and you want that person to respect you back. That's what a fulfilling relationship looks like, validated by the analytics. Those were the people that were currently together and happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that I've been married to my husband for almost 27 years now, and he's it's been a long time. So
Yeah.
sometimes I think back to when, because I met him when I was 23, and that was a long time ago. And but I
Yeah.
think a lot of what you're talking about, with the self-worth and things, I think I'd kind of gotten to a place where I was at where I wasn't really looking for anybody. I was content and happy where I was, and that's where he came along. And but I think we both do feel, and we tell each other that all the time, like I feel so lucky to have him. And I love this because he's going to love a lot of this. He's an accountant, so he's got that analytical
Oh,
mind a
yeah.
lot too. So he's going to love to hear about some of this stuff. It'll probably make a lot of sense to him. He
I
likes the
love
numbers.
it.
He likes the math behind all of
Yeah.
it too. So
Yeah.
it's
You're
very
literally the love story that people look for. And one thing that I say also about the framework is that we need to normalize being single as well. So there
Mhm.
was one group above the currently together in terms of the self score, because the analytics validated and showed that you need a strong self score. There's actually one group above them with an even higher self score, and they did the breaking up. What that means is they chose not to settle. So, as a woman and a man, but maybe a bit more for the woman here, right? In your 30s, when you're single, there's this fear of, oh my God, my clock is running out, right? In your 20s too, maybe not the clock aspect of it in the 20s, but I've recognized that we've put relationships and couples and marriage on a pedestal to the point where it's become a status symbol. And I think that's why people are so afraid to be alone. And that's why people settle into relationships that are just simply not fulfilling. It's because they want to have the wedding, they want to have the house, they want to be a quote unquote match to their social network and their social media. And it's too bad because I think that we're not giving enough, how do I put it? We're not praising enough the people who are okay being alone, right? Because
Mhm.
your story, this is the ultimate love story of two people who met when they were so young, pretty much 30 years later, I think that they're still happy to be together. But it is an outlier. So, with that being an outlier, the people who are together and who are so unhappy and are afraid to be single, are afraid to see what else is out in the world and afraid to get fulfillment from themselves without their partner, I would just really encourage them to do the framework. If your partner is constantly and consistently scoring low, look, it's not a match. You're going to live a very long life. Is it worth it for you? I'm not saying do the test once and then if it's not a match, then leave. I'm not saying that. I'm saying communicate it with your partner. Let your partner know where you feel they're falling short. Let them communicate that with you. But if you're watching these mismatched scores year upon year upon year, the the info is there for you. The measurement is there for you. Do with it what you will, right? If you want to stay in it for kids and mortgage, totally respectable. I completely understand that. If you feel like you need a bit of insight on whether you should stay or not, this framework will help you make that decision by giving you numbers. And the numbers make sense. So I've actually done this with couples, and there's actually one friend in particular. He was married for 10 years. And in the last 3 years of their relationship, it was so rocky. And he's just like, I don't know if I should keep going, keep working on it. So I did the thing with him, the framework with him. And it was very, and the numbers made sense to him. She was not scoring high, right? And more likely than not, he was not scoring high in her eyes either. I essentially told him, unless you guys come back into in alignment with these scores and you actually feel lucky to have her, you will not be fulfilled. That's just the bottom line. You guys need to work on this. Let her know what your values are. Let her explain that to you as well. So, long story short, it just, they couldn't get back into alignment and now they're divorced. But the framework allowed him to make that decision with confidence. And
Yeah.
now he's in a new relationship, something that's a lot more aligned. All to say, I understand it's scary. But for the people who are currently single, don't worry about the status symbol of marriage. Don't worry about what your friends and family are doing. Don't worry about your parents asking and poking at you, when are you getting married? Because we've all been there,
Mm.
right?
I hope not. I know.
Yeah, I mean you hope
Yeah.
not, but it's very, very much a
It,
common thing, very much. Because they want
well,
to think that you're okay. So when they see you
yeah.
single, they feel worried, and
No.
it's a completely different era, now than it was back then. But all to say, don't worry. Don't worry about what
Yeah.
people are saying. The analytics are showing that you're going to be okay. In fact, the people
Yes.
who are choosing not to settle have the top self scores of the whole group. So
And
just
that's the
wait.
key.
Wait for
That's
alignment. Don't
That is
settle.
the key. I totally agree. Like about 2 weeks ago, I did a conference in North Carolina to young single adults, and my title was "Becoming Someone, Not Just Finding Someone," because that's the key. Like don't settle. You don't need to be constantly. You're not less than because you don't have someone. And I have three young adult children. I have a 25-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old daughter, and a 19-year-old son, and I tell them, all the time, like, take your time. Like, you don't need to rush into anything with anyone. And the same thing, don't settle for less than you deserve. And I know my daughter, who's 25, has mentioned a couple of times that she worries because she does see, her dad and I are very much we enjoy being together and
Mhm.
make it a priority. But, we've also worked for 27 years on this at, making each other the priority and making sure that we take that time for one another. I mean, started from very beginning, we make date night, and make sure, even if it's a trip to Costco together or whatever, we make sure that we are doing these things, but it's work. But we both came together at a time where we both were feeling confident in ourselves. We weren't necessarily needing, you know, to find that someone or whatever. And so I do hope that any of the single people that are listening to this and, whether they've been through a terrible relationship and have just gotten out of it or something that, make sure that you are not settling. I love what you said. So
Yeah.
now, but going back to like the quiz and the assessment and all that, that's going to be in a course of yours. Is that what you're saying? Where they can find that?
Yes,
Can
I'm
they
going
find it in
to
the book too?
eventually. Yeah, I mean, the book has the whole framework and it has like questionnaires in there too, because there are different personality types that I identified in terms of how you even do the calculations. And I identified score distortion. So, what happens when you're a self-sacrifice, or what happens when you're infatuated? What happens if you're competitive, if you're nostalgic from a previous relationship? So, I relate everything to scores and values and trait preferences. So, everything is in the book, but I will eventually launch a mini course on my website, like a downloadable PDF where you can do the calculations and do the framework and essentially come to a point of self-awareness. There will be different categories. So one will be just focused on building self-confidence, which is the self-score framework. Another one is how to get over a breakup. Another one will be how you can enhance your relationship alignment. And then the last one will be how to find love, right? So with each and every one, it starts with the self score. I will not even go into partner stuff until
Yeah.
we get that self score down because, like I said, unless you have that, the
Hmm.
rest is just a waste. It's a waste of a
Yeah.
conversation, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I love it. We'll make sure to link everything in our show notes and the book and get that for everyone. So, do you have
Yeah.
any other words? Is there something that maybe we've missed today in talking? Any final words for anybody listening
No,
right now?
no,
Just,
other than just be happy with where you're at. You're okay. Whether you're in a
yep.
relationship or not in a relationship or looking for love or not looking for love, who cares? Just work on
Yeah,
yourself. Everything will fall into place.
it will. It will. And go find your book, get your book, take the score, take the test. We'll link it. And Zoe, this has been super fun and very interesting. I
Dude,
love everything psychological, behavior, all that stuff. I love talking about this kind of stuff. And I love all that you're doing with this. And thank you so much for being here.
thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on the Focus Podcast. If something stood out or helped you in some way, feel free to share it or leave a quick review. It means a lot. Keep showing up, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next episode.